look for when I go antique shopping with Joan? And she said, look for your dad and bring him back.
Oh.
Because my daddy passed away in 2018, and wasn't that a cute response on her part?
That
Was
was.
for me to go look for my dad.
Oh.
So, and this is something, and welcome everyone. If you're watching live, I'm checking it out. Yep, we're on here live. And I'm going to turn it down here. But anyway, my mom, since I've been living, she's been living with us, it has been interesting because I knew my mom as a child. When I was a child, she was my mom. Well, now that she's been living with us for almost 5 years, there's certain things about my mom's personality that I never really appreciated when I was a kid, or I never even realized. And she is funny. She is a funny person. So, and Ken is too. Both of them are quick-witted. I am a stick in the mud. And so I don't have these quick, witty things. I'm serious, all the time. But being around these people helps me to be more open and free, and I love that.
Yeah.
So anyway, we are live here in our group, Essentials for Peace and Balance. Thank you. We have Shanda here with us, and we're going to do some talking about trauma. And before we get started on that, I wanted to share with you a little bit about what she's been doing for the last 9 years. Shanda, this is really cool. You have been devoting your time to your own healing journey while studying human habits, beliefs, and identity. And that study piece is what really speaks to me, because I am a person who loves to learn. I'm an educator, and so that's one of my favorite pastimes, really, is to just love and learn and grow. So anyway, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you, kind of give us a bio and what your current mission is right now.
Yeah. Okay. So hello, everybody. My name is Shanda Soretti, and I'm a certified transformational coach. And like Cindy said, I am passionate about learning all things to do with healing our past, unresolved childhood trauma. And this is my specialty. This is my superpower. I get to work with clients from all over the world to help them and support them in healing their own past. So where do we begin? So like I said, I'm certified. I have been coaching for 5 years now. I've been on my own personal journey for, we're coming up on 10 here soon. And some of the things that I've been able to overcome through my own personal journey have been things like alcohol abuse, drug use, and nicotine abuse. Many other things like food and those types of coping strategies too. But actually, my 9-year sobriety birthday is this weekend, as well as my birthday. So I like to share that because anybody else who is on this journey, I want to acknowledge you. I want to take a moment to acknowledge you and just really presence that. Oftentimes, society is under acknowledged, right? We do not give ourselves that celebration that we so deeply deserve and yearn for. So I am celebrating with each and every one of you. And my mission is really about healing past trauma, healing generational trauma through working with parents so that we stop passing down generational trauma and our own trauma, right? The work really begins with us so that we don't pass on our baggage to our children, right? We do the work so that they don't have to. And my philosophy is that we're not broken, right? We are not broken, even though sometimes you might feel broken and shattered. It's simply a disconnection from our authentic self, from who we truly are. And I find that empowering because when something is disconnected, we can reconnect it. And so it's a lot more inviting and gentle than maybe picking up a bunch of shattered pieces and trying to figure out the puzzle. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I, just like you, I feel like we're not broken, although we feel broken. I mean, that is often the term I hear people using, is that they just feel broken, they feel lost, and they do feel disconnected. But really, it is just a temporary position,
Mhm.
because everyone has a choice between doing something about it or remaining where they are.
Exactly.
And so I like that you put it that way, because every one of us are capable. Every one of us are worthy. Every one of us may not have the tools, though, to know how to move forward um, with intention. And that's where I feel like what you do and what I do and what other coaches do, and mentors and things, is to help people kind of jumpstart the process
Yeah.
of making different choices, or gradually moving into a different attitude or mindset. And so our topic today is healing unresolved trauma. And we hear that a lot, that term. And when you say unresolved trauma, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so this could be a real loaded question. And so I really appreciate you asking it. So trauma is anything that has happened to you that affects how you currently show up today. So that includes the big T's, the little T's, and everything in between, right? So healing unresolved trauma, it's, in a sense, you're healing all those patterns, all those coping strategies that you put into place when you were younger, whether it was, 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, that you put into place that are no longer working for you, and now they work against you. Okay. So I like to compare it
Mm-hmm.
to like our gadgets, right? Like our phones or our computers. Just like the software that run on those technologies and those gadgets, we need updates, and we don't give that to ourselves. So the healing work, the healing journey, is really a journey of updating your software and your program so that you can live the best life today, here and now.
Yeah. And I love how you put that. We all can understand, about the phones and them needing updates, and what happens when you don't.
Mm.
When you're on your iPad or you're on whatever mobile device, and it keeps asking you to update, and you keep saying, wait, wait, wait. Eventually, guess what? It's it gets a little quirky,
Yeah.
and you think, okay, maybe I better update.
Yeah.
And but it's so much easier to update our phone than it is sometimes to update ourselves and
Absolutely.
our beliefs and
Yeah.
our core um, issues that we think we have. But it's what I want people to understand is that it's not a fault that we have. Like you say, it's not that you're broken. It's just that you are disconnected. You are in a completely different world than you were back in the day when you were learning the coping mechanisms that you learned back then.
Yeah.
And so every day we have a new opportunity to do that.
Mm.
And when we think about this, being able to help people make transformations, what was it that sparked or ignited your passion for what you're doing? I mean, even and if this isn't too personal, what moved you to sobriety?
Yeah. Okay, so there are two reasons why people change. And the first reason is that we are inspired to change, right? So we see somebody doing something, we see a video, we read something, and we're like, oh, wow, I want that. And we go and we do it. And then the alternative is waiting for things to get so bad that there's literally no other choice left but to change, right? So
Mm.
one is from a place of love, and one is almost from a place of despair. And so, if I was being honest, I think mine was kind of a combination. Mine started with being backed into a corner and looking by myself. By the way, I backed myself into the corner. I'll be fully transparent with that one. And I did a life inventory one day, and I was like, what in the heck am I doing with my life? I was 26 years old, and my life resembled nothing of what I thought it might be by this age. I had nothing significant in my life, and I just felt so disconnected with why I was here, what I was supposed to be doing, right? And just questioning everything. So my journey started from a place of pain, and then it transmuted into something of more like inspiration, where I saw somebody else changing their life and I was like, I want that. And so in a moment, I decided, wait a minute, for this whole time, I've been thinking thoughts like, I can't have that. I don't deserve that. I don't know how to do that. That's just not for me. It's not in my cards. To being like, wait a minute, I want that and I'm going to go get it because I deserve that too. Right. So I shifted my mindset around that. So my own personal healing journey was what got me on the route of leading others and coaching others. And with the sobriety thing, again, it came down to that life inventory. And I'll tell you, I'll be totally honest with you here because that's what I'm all about. It wasn't an enjoyable experience to step back and disassociate with my life and actually look at it from an outside perspective, right? We often don't see things as they are. We see them as we want to see them. So I got a different perspective on my life and what I was actually creating in my life. And it was eye-opening and it was uncomfortable. And I was like, I can do better than this. And I want better than this. And so I sought out a different path. And I will share this last piece about it. When I decided to quit drinking, to quit smoking, and to quit drugs, I did it overnight. I threw everything in the garbage and I never looked back. And that was almost 9 years ago to the day. So it can happen for anybody, and it doesn't have to be hard or complicated. Not to take away from those journeys who are hard and complicated, but I'm just saying this is also another possibility for people.
Yes, and I agree with you. And you were so succinct in how you said and defined the two reasons that people move forward. I think I'm a mixture of the two, but mostly a few years back anyway, in my career as an educator, it was a must because I was on medical leave. And I couldn't function anymore. My body just said, you've had enough of this stress and performance-based mindset that you are going to have to do something different. Yeah. And so that's when I made the shift to start learning and changing and growing and seeking out support from other people. You don't necessarily have to be dealing with alcohol abuse or drug abuse or smoking. It could be food. It could be prescription medicines that you're relying on to try to put your life back together. And, a pill ain't going to do it, and that's where I was feeling like, I needed to see one doctor after another to figure out how am I going to start feeling better? Yeah. And I did that for a few years and that didn't do it either. So, being able to transform how you look at it and where you look for the answers, I think is a big, important piece of it. I know there's probably people who just get inspired and change because, yep, this is it. I'm inspired. I'm going to change. But I think a lot of times we go through the pain first.
Absolutely.
That's human nature, I feel like, at least in a lot of the people that I talk to and that I work with. And I imagine that the same thing is probably true with you and your clients, the people that you work with. And, you know, when you think about what you do and who you help, is there a specific person, and you don't want to tell us who they are, obviously, but a specific transformation that you helped someone make that is above all? It's like the queen of all stories. Can you think of something like that?
Of course. And I do want to say that I am so humbled and grateful to serve the people that I do serve, whether it's in, my one-on-one coaching program or through paid events or even just through Facebook Lives like this in a group and just sharing. So any transformation is something to celebrate in my books. But answering your specific question, what is a transformation that really stands out for me? And this is the one that I do tend to share most often because it was so prolific. So this woman came to me and she was a mom in her late 40s and she was completely crippled with anxiety to the point where she wouldn't answer the
Mm,
phone. She couldn't go
mm,
do
mm,
errands
mm,
by
mm.
herself. Like those day-to-day tasks that we might take for granted were huge, monumental challenges for her to overcome. So working together, we worked in different blocks. And so what happened was that she was able to transform her anxiety into freedom, right? So she went from not being able to answer the phone to being able to go and make a phone call, then to driving around in a vehicle to go to her appointments with like the music on in the truck as she drove through the town, or to go get groceries, right? So there were all these little things that added up to this huge transformation. And she found, ease in flow in her day to day, as opposed to that anxiety and catastrophizing and, what if, and oh my gosh, I can't. Like she was so limited in her life. And so that one is the one that always stands out to me the most, because the shift was from somebody who was so guarded and limited to somebody who I picture like a field full of beautiful flowers all in bloom, right? Like she
Mhm.
came into her own beauty, and her experience of life changed, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful example of transformation. And the thing that I think is coming to mind for me right now is that it's not only parents and people that have heavy burdens. There are people that are single, and it looks like Joan would like to ask a question. So let me let Joan, she raised her hand. Joan, is there something you'd like to talk about regarding what we were just mentioning? Let's see, you want to unmute?
Unmute.
Uh,
There we go. Okay, can you hear me now?
yeah.
Okay. This particular person that you were talking about, at what age did all of this occur? Did it, because you said she was older? I think maybe you said she had children. How old was it whenever she started withdrawing from herself and having so much anxiety? Was she that age, or did it happen later in life? Or I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
No, that's a great question. So these we got to kind of dig into where she was and where she had come from, like what her particular experiences were. So I have a belief that change work, first of all, happens on three levels. So it's habits, belief, and identity. So when I work with my clients, we jump between those three layers, and that's what really creates this transformation. So we got to uncover that for her, all of the anxiety, the catastrophizing, the overthinking, the people pleasing, and the controlling aspect to things stemmed from her childhood. And that's usually always the case, not 100% of the time, but for the majority of the time, it comes from childhood. And then these things kind of take on a life of their own, right? And they transform into something bigger. So what might have started as, her having anxiety around a particular sibling or her relationship with parents transformed into her having anxiety about every single aspect of life as she got older, right? Because this thing went unattended to for so long that it grew so large till it couldn't be ignored anymore. Does that make sense?
Wow. Yeah, it does. It sort of just got worse over time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. That's a great question.
Well, thanks for answering that.
And did you have another question, Joan?
No, I said just thanks for answering that. So I was just curious.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And when we think about that, Shanda, it really makes sense that that there's usually an inkling of it as you are growing up.
Right.
Mine was a performance-based mentality that I've had since I was born, probably. And it just continued over time to be a coping mechanism that eventually was crippling to me. And everyone, is in a different situation. Do you ever work with individuals who are not like married and have families and things, but people that are in the middle-aged adults that are just not coping?
Yes.
Do you have a program where you can work with those type of people?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my messaging, so to speak, is I talk a lot about women. I talk a lot about parents, but I work with, an array of people. There's no age limit. There's no restriction. I have zero restriction. What I do is this. I have one-on-one consultations with people. I don't even like to call them consultations. We have a conversation. We sit down in a private setting, very safe, and we just talk. And I get to learn about that person on the other side of the screen or telephone, whatever it may be. And I hear a little bit about their story and their life. And from that point, I'm able to see if I'm a good fit for them, and they're able to see if they are a good fit for me, and vice versa, right? Because I believe that there's an energetic exchange between coach client, right? And I believe that when that connection is there, it's just something that you feel. And those are the people who I can serve to my fullest capabilities, right? It's like when my genius comes on, when we have that connection. And so, every conversation I have is not to say that I work with that person, we work together, but the majority of the time I'm able to serve them in some way. And if I'm not the right fit for them, I have a whole arsenal of other coaches who specialize maybe in something that I don't, or something that I haven't been doing for very long, where I can refer them to those particular experts. So I'm not sure if that really answers your question, but I've worked with people from as young as in their 20s to all the way into their 60s and 70s. So parents, non-parents, men, women, all ages. Yeah.
And I think, sometimes I have this question, and I don't know if people say that when we say childhood trauma, sometimes I think, this is me, just me alone. Sometimes I get the idea that it's something that you came from a really bad home life, and you experienced a lot of deprivation or something. But I've learned, I think, that childhood trauma is much broader than that, isn't it? Because there are people, I think, and this isn't my expertise, but people who have come from good homes, who have, what I call a good home, and who have had loving parents and positive experiences, but yet there's still something from way back when that was traumatic for them that nobody else knows about or understands completely. Do you feel that way when you think about childhood trauma?
100%. So, um, in a sense, because there's big T and little t, right? So there's those big T's like you were talking about, like sexual abuse or somebody passing away. There's all different types to the smaller things, and not to discredit any of it or take away from any of it. But listen, life is 50-50. Okay. So it is impossible to avoid pain and suffering and discomfort. And when we're able to come to the table and see that and be honest about that, like, hey, yes, I 100 full heartedly want to be happy. But I also know that happiness 100% of the time is not possible, and it's
Mhm.
not desirable either, because when we take a step back and we're like, I want to be happy all the time, because this is what I hear a lot, and I understand where they're coming from, but our language is so important, and so we get to really pay attention to the words that we speak and what we're saying. So when we say we want to be happy all the time, what I often follow that up with is like, well, do you want to be happy if somebody passes away, or if you lose your job, or if you get sick, right? We don't want to feel happy in those moments. We want to feel what we're the appropriate feeling. So it's more about learning how to feel the broad spectrum of emotion and
Mhm.
allowing ourselves to go through those feelings, and know that no matter what feeling we experience, we're going to be okay on the other side, right?
Yeah.
So trauma can be something like, when we look at childhood, for example, childhood trauma can start something like this. This could be a seed that gets planted in a 2-year-old's brain, for example. Okay, so just I'm going to paint a little picture for you. So picture a baby in like a crib, and the baby's crying and they want their mommy, and they're crying and they have their hands up, right? And the mom is coming over to pick up the child, but the phone rings, and she's like, hang on a minute. And she turns away from the child to go get the phone. To that child, that is a traumatic experience. And all the coping strategies and limiting beliefs that we learn later in life and develop later in life come into play. This is where they start. Okay. And it's not to say that the mom didn't love the child, but children do not understand why mom turned away. They just know mom turned away. So the only thing left for a child to do, because we are meaning making machines, this is a belief, we are meaning making machines, this is where our grief comes from. We need to make meaning out of everything. So to a child, the only thing that makes sense to them is either there's something wrong with mom, which is jeopardizes our whole livelihood, right? Puts us in danger, or there's something wrong with me. So that is what the child believes in that moment. There's something wrong with me. And then over time, these things develop and grow into other things, right? So it doesn't matter, like you said, if you come from a beautifully polished, well-loved family or something completely different, right? It's those little moments incrementally that compound and create our thoughts, our beliefs, and our experiences.
Yeah. I understand that now, and that makes good sense how that is. And I don't know if I'm the only one that, when I hear childhood trauma, I guess it's because I've worked with children with special needs, and a lot of the children that I've worked with over the years have had issues with, substance abuse while they were in the womb. And, there's been a lot of real overt trauma dealing with those kids. But I know that there's plenty of people in this world who are just feeling like they are not worthy for whatever reason. And I guess, and I know that our time is almost up. Sometimes, and your motto is allow your desire for change to be greater than your fear of the unknown. It's hard to convince somebody to do that.
Yeah.
And we can't convince them, I don't think, as coaches.
No.
I guess it's people that are willing to reach out. What about those people that aren't willing to reach out? Sometimes I feel a burden for that.
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. And I mean, that just speaks to, the humanness of us all, right? Um, I believe, we're all connected, and it I cannot influence anybody else to change. And I've been there, right? When I was smoking and drinking and doing drugs, I had people offering to pay me a little bit of money every week to not smoke, people who cared about me to pay me money to not. And I didn't take them up on that offer, because in order to change, there's two things. You have to change for yourself first. You cannot change for other people. It does not work. It's not sustainable. And it must be done from a place of love. We cannot hate ourselves better. We cannot hate ourselves healed. That doesn't make sense. It has to stem from a place of love, which is safety, acceptance, belonging, and worthiness, and all of those beautiful qualities that we strive for. And it may not be just as simple as, not allowing your fear of change to be greater than your excitement for something better, but it can be as simple as, hey, listen, I'm open to the idea that I am worthy. I'm open to the idea. I might not believe it, I might not be able to embody it, but I'm open to exploring that option, knowing that everything has an option, right?
There you go. I like how you put that. It doesn't mean you're going to change instantly and you're automatically going to give up everything that you've known your whole life, but you're open to exploring it. And that is the key right there, is just be open, because you never know where that door is going to take you. Now, I know that you have a Facebook community, and we will be putting the link to that in below our comments today. And is there something we talked about earlier, something you have, like a free guide of 7 ways that you're stuck? Could you tell us just a little bit about that? And then we'll be putting that down in the comments too.
Yeah, absolutely. So this guide is it's a 3-part guide actually. And if you want to go all the way through, what you're going to learn is you're going to start to uncover the ways that you're stuck. So we were talking a little bit about like limiting beliefs and some sort of like negative chatter and negative thoughts. So when you have thoughts like I'm not enough, or I can't do this, or whatever the limiting belief is for you, this is a guide to, first of all, help you identify what some of your blocks are. And then secondly, how to start clearing them and reframing them so that you can start having a different experience where these limiting beliefs get updated, like those programs, and they no longer have a negative impact on your day-to-day life. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on here with us. I feel like I've learned some about trauma,
Yeah.
and about my own beliefs about childhood trauma, and being able to understand from your perspective, and with the information that you've shared, that you say childhood trauma, but there is a vast array of things that impact us. And I would venture to say that probably some of us don't even know what it was.
Oh, yeah. 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 And actually, to further that, it's not even necessarily important to know what it was, because the way that I work with my clients is that we don't rehash the old things. We go back and we explore, but we look at what is affecting you now. What is
Yeah.
affecting you? What's showing up? And we work from that point forward, because the past is unchangeable. I can't go and help and support anything around it. I can maybe give you a new perspective that you haven't thought of before, offer you some ideas around that. But what we're really working on is moving forward. So we're future focused as opposed to past focused, which is where trauma comes into play. We are stuck in the past, right? So I have a belief, another one, my last one I'll share, is that we are either winning or we are learning. And I will tell you that I have been on this journey for almost 10 years, and I learn every single day. I even learn from my clients. Okay. We are always learning. And if we're not learning, we're winning. So what a beautiful way to approach your life, right?
Yes, yes. I love that. So I just so appreciate you and your ability to share what it is, and to be vulnerable and tell us, about your life and what you've gone through. And I'm grateful that Joan has joined us as well live to ask questions. And if there's people who are watching the replay here and you have questions, feel free to put them down there in the comments. And we are going to, like I said, share your links for people. And is there any one phrase or one comment that you would like to make as we end this session to support someone who might be stuck right now?
Yeah. We are all born worthy. Worthiness is an innate quality. It's not something you have to achieve, get, or go do. It's not something that can be taken away from you. So it does not matter what you've done, what you don't do, or where you are. You are worthy exactly as you are right here and right now.
That is potent.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. And we will see everyone later, and hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. You're welcome. Bye-bye.